All right. Welcome everybody to the fifth episode in the IDP webinar series. Creating a more intelligent pharmaceutical industry. I think that is what we're all working towards. So let's get right into it with, again, interesting topics. Vina, can we move to the next slide? So, IDMP, its identification of medicinal products, I should say, is only possible because of the GSRS, the Global Substances Registry System. We're working together with the Pistoria Alliance to create an open science, open source community to get that going and to get the support of the industry for making that happen. To create more awareness, we have started this webinar series, and we're happy to say that we're in episode 5. And today, what to expect: IDMP and PMS. The EMA PMS platform on how data has to be submitted already with deadlines in 2026. So the clock is ticking, let's put it that way. So the latest update and implementation and building IDMP knowledge graphs with IDMPO best practices and lessons learned, partly with GVW Sema-Dana and partly with Accurate's Heiner Oberkampf. Next slide, please. We have captured the first 3 series on this particular slide, so it's probably easy to find back. So everybody who's joining, also these webinars are still available. You can go to particular chapters. On the first one with the introduction of IDMP and GSRS, we had Birte Nielsen from Pistoria, Christian Hay from ISO, and Marlene Kim as a person involved with the GSRS at the FDA side. The second one was with Olaf Lagerlund from Uppsala Monitoring Center and EMR from GSK, specifically in the Experience Pharma Life Sciences company, GSK in this instance. Very interesting to hear 2 use cases from 2 totally different areas for the GSRS. The third event, we had Marcel Hoefnagel speaking and Birte Nielsen again talking about more about the why and what we are aiming to achieve with this open source, open science community. And Marcel, who spoke from his experience with the Dutch regulatory authorities and the role that he plays in the EMA as well. Next slide, where we have a summary from the fourth webinar. Last time we covered core GSRS and IDMP concepts. An overview of the GSRS in great detail given by Marlene Kim. I think that was very learning as such. And as well, we had Igor speaking about the IT part and the coding part and the technicalities part, which I think will be highly appreciated by a big part of the community as well. It was about the core, it was about the functionality substance management, it was about adoption, evaluation, and the migration process. Next slide, please. Just quickly going to the highlights. Marlene, project manager of the Global Substance Registry System at the FDA, showing the global IDMP implementation at the FDA. You can look back for that in that particular webinar. And the next one from Igor, key insights from Igor. Really about the GSRS adoption projects, specifically in Germany and in Europe specifically. I would say very telling for companies that get ready into this. Next slide, please. Okay. First, I want to position it a little bit, and I thought, well, how shall I tell my story? And I like to tell the same story because nothing ever changes. As long as the drug products are in the market, the data is there. I think we're just realizing what the focus is. Vina, can you click to get this going? patient's health comes ultimately from substances. Substances mixed together get into drug products meeting patient needs. That's what brings health as such. So the focus is always the patient. We are working on the patient-centric, data-driven, and possibly AI-enabled value chain. Next one, Vina. I think we have to realize that we work in a expansive ecosystem. It's not a simple chain. It's a complex network where in the life science organizations, drug product research, drug development, the operations really work intrinsically together, and they reach the patient through the healthcare organizations. At the healthcare side, it requires planning, diagnosis, and assessment. It's basically the patient life cycle. At the life sciences side, it goes into the discovery, the research, clinical research approvals, and getting the drug product going. So that one we show in the middle, and the other one we show around the big circle. Next slide, please. But there's a reality in the world today. And as long as I've been working into life science companies specifically, now almost 2 decades, I see 3 streams. A science data stream, a business data stream, and a regulatory data stream. And somehow these are not integrated. And I've been in many conversations over the years where say, don't touch it because it reaches regulatory. I think that is exactly what we try to change, except this is not the reality either. Next slide, please. I think the reality is more like this. The science stream, the business stream, the regulatory stream, we're through the value chain. Is not even connected. What we have is an unlimited bottles of data that we really have to connect, and we have to make the data flow. The data flows as the product flows in its evolution towards the patient. I think that's what we're working towards. And all the presentations and discussions that we are having ultimately will lead to a much better flow of data. Next slide, please. Better flow of data will result in better patient outcomes. It means really collaboration and integration for better patient outcomes. Last slide on this segment, please, Vina. When we all work together to make the data flow and have better patient outcome, who benefits from it? In the end, in the center is the patient, of course, but those are hospitals, clinics, professionals delivering medical care, people enhancing efficiency through the healthcare ecosystem with telemedicine, AI diagnostics, and what have you, advancing treatments as such. On the other hand, research and formulation of new medicines to treat diseases will be accelerated through this ongoing safety and efficacy through the regulatory authorities, who basically protect patient communities. Producing and delivering medications globally. It's a global world. There's still a lot of alignment in ontology of the data that needs to happen there. Ensuring compliance, safety, and ethical standards in the healthcare and the innovation in supplying medicines. Now, let's go to the presenters for today. I would like to introduce Seema Adana, IDMP, Identification of Medicinal Products Registration, if you will, subject matter expert for Global Value App, and many years of experience in on my shoulder. It says executed for today, organizing for tomorrow. That's executing for today. The data has to flow and stuff needs to be filed. And then comes Heiner, the next one. Heiner looks into the future, being part of Pistoia for quite some time and working with the industry on how we can use modern technologies like knowledge graphs, etc., to really put a graph behind the ontologies as such and make it technically readable across the entire network. So Heiner, also welcome. We'll kick off today with Seema. Next slide. So CMA has 18 years of global regulatory experience across EU, US, and international markets. Deep expertise in ISO IDMP standards, just from a pragmatic use and a pragmatic day-to-day experience, leading teams, processing the data. Hence, he has proven leadership in driving functional regulatory projects, optimizing processes, and delivering data-driven solutions for organizations like Daiichi, Yanko, J&J, MSD, and Eli Lilly. Strong foundation in the regulatory submission strategy, an MPharm degree, and an MBA, which also matters in this industry. So, Seema, I will be handing it over to you, and I trust it will be an interesting 25 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. So, yes, it's going to be very interesting 25 minutes. So let's start IDMP journey with PMS. So I'll take you through this journey in 25 minutes. Let's start with IDMP. So the photograph, universal photograph, everybody relates to it as IDMP. So EMA decided to implement ISO IDMP standards, which are nothing but international standards for unique identification of medicinal product. So EMA mandates the use of ISO IDMP standards so that it is a structured, interoperable, and high quality data exchange possible between the agencies, industry, and other stakeholders. So this is a major regulatory shift which is being carried out through Product Management System termed as PMS. Now, what is IDMP? So I feel IDMP is, being used more than it is it's a huge umbrella. It's not just the IDMP. So normally IDMP is being referred to everything which is happening under that umbrella. If you look at IDMP, it is identification of medicinal product, which is nothing just standards for unique identification. So if you say IDMP, it just means standards for unique identification. But there's a full ecosystem, there's a full landscape. So we have IDMP, then we have data management services, which are SPOR, S for substance, P for product, O for organization, and R for referentials. Let's pick the P part from the SPOR, which is product management services. So what is PMS? It's a database which will be serving as centralized repository of medicinal product in the EU. How are we going to exchange information? Through FHIR. So it's a standard framework to define how IDMP information is exchanged. So though we all refer IDMP, but IDMP is just standard, there's a full landscape, it's a full umbrella. The PMS part, the product management service. So what exactly we picked up P from the SPOR. So it's going to be a centralized repository for human medicinal product, which will include both centrally authorized procedures and non-centrally authorized procedures. As of today, it only has human medicines. It will not be, it as of today does not have veterinary medications and investigation medications. So why it is becoming so important? We know it's centralized repository because this is going to be a trusted shared source for both agency and industry and various manufacturers, stakeholders, so that data can be exchanged. So high quality data, reliable data that can be exchanged through PMS. So that's why it's becoming very, very important. And yes, it will streamline the regulatory processes. It will be having a data exchange, it will reuse the data. So there are various benefits of PMS as a system, but majorly it's a trusted source which will have high quality data. Now let's look at PMS unique source of data. We saw IDMP, then we saw SPOR, and then we came to PMS. We say it's a centralized repository. Now, how come it is a centralized repository? Where is that information coming from? So the initial migration, the first migration done by EMA is coming from two major sources. For centralized procedures, it's a mix of SIAMED and XCVMPD. There's a full chapter of merge rule. So some information is going to come from XCVMPD also for centralized procedures. For non-centralized procedure, it is fully XCVMPD. So these two systems feed the PMS. We have data management services, the substance, the organization, the reference, which we saw in the spore. So they are also synchronized with PMS. They are also feeding the PMS. Now, this is a centralized repository. EMA migrated the data. How an industry is going to look into the data, how an MH can access that data. So as we said, there is going to be a dedicated way of accessing this, that is through product user interface or through API. So your system to system capability has to be there, or you can go into PLM portal and access this. Now this is the PMS, you have an access to it. Where is this data going to flow? So data is going to flow into various EMA systems like electronic application form, which is a web-based form. It is going to replace the present form. You have product inserts, then comes ESMP, which is a shortage management platform. You have ASU, which is antimicrobial sales and unit. So there are various systems which PMS is going to feed. So the data coming from various systems is going to be fed into the system. Hence, the importance of alignment, structured and high quality data. So whatever it's data in PMS will flow into these various systems. Now let's talk about the timelines. The clock is ticking, everybody is worried. So what is the timeline which everybody is rushing to? So first enrichment is the deadlines which everybody is rushing to. So on 10 September, EMA gave two major updates. One was they extended the deadlines for PMS data submission. They gave us 6 more months to the industry, and they released two new PMS functionality to support the enrichment. So let's talk about the new PMS functionalities first. So the API write functionality, that is, you can go from your system to system, that has been released. Secondly, bulk uploads. Previously, bulk uploads were not possible in PLM portal, but in September, EMA has shown that bulk updates for MRP, DCP is possible. If it's the same information, you can do bulk uploads. Now let's come to the ticking clock, the deadlines. 6 more months. So there's a critical medicine list which EMA has released. If you have your molecules in that, so there's a separate timelines you need to follow. So total enrichment, including the pack size and the manufacturer's data, needs to be completed by June 2026. This is 6 more months. For rest of the non-CAPS products, you can continue doing it till June 2027. For manufacturing data of non-CAPS, there's no change in the deadline. It still remains December 2026. So how are you going to, put the priorities? Critical medicine becomes the automatic priorities. Now, next slide. Now let's talk about the enrichment part, the structured data on pack size, manufacturers, and manufacturing business operations. So even though it's written in 3 steps, it is not at all 3 steps simple. But majorly, first you have to do the pack size split in XCVMPD if your MA number is assigned at medicinal product level. In the PMS, for the PMS enrichment, you need to gather the data first. It has to be aligned for spore. And then you can go and enrich. As we said, you have API, write access possible, you have bulk uploads, you have PLM portal access. So all through these two major medias, major access tools, you can go and edit in PMS. So manufacturers, structured data for pack size, data carrier identifier is still optional, but first two are mandatory, and we saw the timelines for them. So let's see the structured data on pack sizes. So we can say that, we are giving pack sizes data. We have a lot of data in XCVMPD. Why are we, enriching it? The data in XCVMPD is in a free flow text. It's not structured. It cannot be used for analytical purpose. And the data required, the unit of presentation, it's not present in the XCVMPD. Hence, we need to go and upload it. Let's see the next slide. If you see, this is a PMS screenshot. Data not available in SciMed, XCVMPD, and needs to be uploaded here. Two major pack size structure data, unit of presentation, and quantity. These two parts need to be updated by MAH. Now coming to the manufacturers and business operations. So manufacturers are linked at various level: medicinal product, packaged medicinal product, ingredients, package items, manufactured item, devices. You will have full manufacturing list here. All these manufacturers should be aligned in OMS for sure. Now next slide. If you see the manufacturers and MBOs, so this is the blue part. This is basically nothing but based on chapter 2 of IDMP, these are data entry points for all MAH. So these are your data which needs to be provided. Out of this, the mandatory part which EMA wants you to complete is manufacturing organization details. That is on the top. You have operation type. You have manufacturing operation start date. These three, along with confidentiality, are mandatory to be completed. Now coming to the reference number, effective date, and agency. These three are being recommended, though not mandatory, but they are being recommended to be completed. And for approvals post 1st January, they're highly recommended that you should complete it. I have given certain rules which might be beneficial when you are completing this data. Now, where will I get the list of manufacturing operations which I need to fulfill? In chapter 3 of IDMP, EMA has given you a list of operations which you should identify and list down. So they are just few which you see on the slide. But when you go for data alignment and your PMS, there's huge amount of issues. So if you see there is data missing, though it should have been transferred from SciMed or XCVMPD, but still it is blank. There is incorrect data. There is multiple pack size details which I've shown in single package description. Authorization status mismatches are there, and you would also see that sometimes your PMS ID also changes. Today it's something and tomorrow when you go in, and that is not because of the life cycle maintenance. So it's not easy to align the data as of today also, despite a lot of change requests being raised. It's still in progress. So these are very few. The number of experiences which we see at various alignment, when we go for data alignment, there are various in number. I've just written down the most popular ones. Now coming to the next, challenges in PMS and internal data alignment. So as I was saying that, the regulatory, the IDMP, the PMS, and the request of agency to complete data enrichment is there, but it's not easy. When you start doing it, there are challenges which makes it more slower. So what are the normal challenges which majorly industry face? So if you see, first is data quality and data governance. The sheer volume and heterogeneity of existing data. Present medicinal product data is scattered across the systems, sometimes unstructured also. So if I have data in various systems in different form, in different definitions, to make it IDMP structure, it's a monumental task. Also, the present data which has come from various sources, XCVMPD, SciMed, PMS, there is a mismatch between them only. So the data quality, which presently we see, and the data governance, that is a major challenge and the most important one, I feel, for industry to, uh, you know, take, resolve before doing any kind of alignment. Now, the continuous change, as we have seen that IDMP has evolved and PMS is still not finalized. So to have an adaptable system, to have adaptable processes, that is a challenge. You should be ready for updations. They have been updating, and an adaptable or agile mindset. Now, as we have seen that presently, we have to keep data in three systems: XCVMPD, SciMed, PMS. You have to maintain your life cycle in these many systems. That is also a challenge. You have to be aligned. Now, the third part, the PMS roadmap and strategy. Presently, if you look at the PMS roadmap, we are only getting please enrich these two parts. Enrich the structured pack size, enrich the what is the long-term plan of enrichment? Because then only you can plan it in a better way. Otherwise, we'll be referring to our data again and again, again and again. So we have absolutely no long-term idea about the PMS. We are still relying on XCVMPD and SciMed, though there is a plan for dephasing XCVMPD, but we do not know when. So we have to maintain data across various systems, and we have to do short-term plannings. Apart from technical, we have major other challenges also. And first and foremost, like collaboration across different departments. IDMP can only be successfully implemented if the data which is present in various systems, departments, there is a successful collaboration. A unified view of product data and streamlined data can only be possible if this cross-functional collaboration is there. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's is pretty much on time, Seema. Very well. If nobody's interrupting with questions, it goes smooth. So I would like to ask anybody who still wants to raise a question or whatever to use the QA segment. That will be very much appreciated. Heiner is next. After that, I will do a brief summary and we move into a panel discussion. And we have quite a few panel members on board right now, so it should be an interesting discussion. So Heiner, CNO and co-founder of Accurates, a background in mathematics and computer sciences. That doesn't hold him, we won't hold him against that the data has to flow from a science and business perspective, but he does his best using mathematics and informatics to make the data flow. He founded Accurates and built a scalable IDMP data standardization fabric, which we also like from how we want to organize data, designed to seamlessly connect medicinal product information across organizations, and made significant headway over the last few years. And Heiner, the floor is yours to give insights in what you are working on with in the market with Accurates and what you aim to achieve.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luis. And I may share the screen so that the clicking is more smooth. Let me know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, thank you very much, Luis, for the introduction and opportunity here to join this interesting presentation and discussion, and Seema for this good overview already of the different challenges. And I fully agree, if we want to make this a success, then we need to make data flow between the different parts in a pharma organization, from research in clinical to regulatory and safety and so on. And in order to make data flow, we need to have a shared data language so that we can collaboratively work on the global challenges together and automate more of this data exchange, and also establish the basis for really trustful AI with right data quality. Now, at the heart of a shared data language is that we understand whether we're talking about the same thing or about different things. And that's why IDMP, with the unique identification, is at the heart of also what we're doing at Accurates, where we try to manage accurately all identifiers across the entire enterprise. And medicinal product information, of course, is the most important data object in the enterprise, and that's why we focus on the standardization in that area. And the good thing is that for product information, there are the ISO standards. What we saw, however, is that the ISO standards are implemented differently in different vendor solutions. By the authorities, it's differently implemented. So about 4 years ago, Sheila Els was working on the ISO standardization on the working group there. And we were in contact also in a project at Bayer, and I saw also how Novartis already developed internally some IDMP ontology, and we thought this is really the way going forward to augment the ISO standards with a digital version of it, representing the data model and descriptions in a semantic and fully standardized way, so that we have an implementation standard. And that's what we started about 4 years ago under the umbrella of the PSTOI Alliance. And you see that several pharma companies already sponsored this whole initiative, and we're just in the year 4 now. And so if we look at a pharma company, there are different departments from clinical, safety, regulatory, and so on. And in most cases, they work in their different specialized systems because they all work in their specialized workflows. But this led to the fragmented data that Seema was talking about. And in order to answer questions that go beyond the boundaries of specific departments and that go beyond the specific boundaries of systems, we need to standardize the data and then stitch it together so that we can link information from one department and one system into the other departments and provide this kind of a glue between the different departments using the IDMP standards as the shared data language, and that the connectivity across the departments. And this is at the heart of what we call this IDMP standardization fabric. This is first of all the pharma internal data standardization, but of course there's even another bridge that we need to cross, and this is with the external world, and foremost, of course, in the context of IDMP with the authorities, or in the context of safety with food drug. And so the same mechanism, standardizing with the IDMP ontology, helps to connect not only the internal department, but also can help to bridge with external organizations. And now there are some challenges, of course, with some new technology like the IDMP ontology or this new semantics. And there are quite a lot of challenges that prevent people really from gaining the benefits. So it's not so easy to get started. It's difficult always to argue what's the business value, similar like in master data management. Yeah, what is the return of invest for this standardization effort? Then, of course, the current data is not always in the right level of quality, and it requires tremendous investment, of course, to clean up the historical data from the past years, especially in a regulated environment like pharma, where you can't easily change everything that quickly. Also, how is IDMPO positioned with respect to RIM or MDM systems? IDMP in the product domain is not a simple domain. Yeah, it's quite complex, all these different types of products and the system fragments, okay, so we mentioned. Now, we can think about how we approach this. And of course, there are some lucky cases, I would say, where you somehow manage to convince the C-level that there needs to be a very big standardization effort. And Gang Xu from J&J yesterday in the webinar with PSTOI Alliance said that they have really that mandate to implement on a global scale for J&J. But this is, I think, more the exceptional situation, and I call this here the lucky pass. And of course, then you can focus on really engaging the business champions and work towards this implementation with the top level mandate. Option B is, and that's what I call the pragmatic path, and that's why also this webinar today is focus on one particular very high value use case. And I think right now, EMA PMS data alignment is the prime use case for the IDMP ontology. And with this value demonstration, then go into further implementations of IDMP ontology. The common path yet is that people start with some enthusiasts, some ontologists internally. Everybody has somewhere some semantics experts, and it's more a grassroots thing. But it's really difficult really to sustain that momentum and get to broader impact if you're not having a clear business case or value from the business side. And there are definitely EMA PMS has the advantage. And that's why we also think this is the best entry point to overcome the implementation challenges. So how do we do that? And we use the IDMP ontology basically as the standardization framework. On the left, you see the EMA data. And as Seema explained, we need to ensure that the internal data and the EMA data is corresponding to each other, and there are no discrepancies, that we have a shared truth. Now for the EMA side, we have implemented already a connector that automatically translates all the file messages from EMA's PMS into an IDMP knowledge graph that corresponds with the IDMP ontology. And for the internal world, of course, for Viva, we are also building connectors and for standard RIMS, MDM systems. And then data is in the same shape. We can more easily, more automatically compare, match, and resolve the discrepancies. Now I will explain this on an example with Boehringer Ingelheim as we co-developed the solution that I'll present over the last 6 months. And together with Jörg Stüben, I've presented that recently also at the GPRAS conference. Most of the slides are from that presentation. But also very recently, Fabian Mutter, who works in the same department, presented at the industry workshop also some. And I think he really nicely summarized. That's why I asked him to get those slides here. The challenge is that the data from the left side from EMA and the internal side where it's in multiple systems doesn't always easily fit together. There are some discrepancies, and it's also quite tedious to update the data. You need to send a change request or a ticket on the EMA side. You need to ask people in the different systems to update something. It's not, let's say, a quick fix of these data quality issues. And so what we've done is with the solution with Accurates is with the IDMP ontology that we put Accurates in the middle so that we can standardize the data and then more accurately compare and align that, and so that we have a continuous monitoring of those changes. And this goes with connecting to EMA data, matching, comparing, aligning the data. 4 simple steps, and I will guide you through that now. So first of all, we have a connector where we only need the EMA credentials or this security token, and then you basically with one click pull over the entire product portfolio from the different cups and non-cups. With that, then we run a set of data quality rules that correspond to the shortage monitoring requirements for critical medicines, but there are also additional rules for IDMP in general or other EMA requirements. And this, of course, can be augmented with internal ones. There's a severity level from errors that need to be fixed, warnings that should be fixed, and more nice to have quality issues that you should fix if you really have the time to add that, or you have an internal case for those things. And this is also fully automated. So after we pull over the data, we automatically run this. And this gives an overview of what are the issues. So is it more, for example, on the dose forms or more on the manufactured items, or on which elements are the issues? And then what we just recently did is we include a monitoring of how these issue resolution evolves over time so that you can then track whether you're making progress towards this resolution of the quality issues. And that helps to see whether you're on track for the deadlines. Now this is the EMA side, and then for the internal side, we also onboard the data, and then we establish these kind of matching rules that automatically click the data together. And for those things that can't express with rules, we have some AI capabilities that work now with vectorizing the knowledge graph so that you find also non-obvious matches, but those a data steward then still needs to confirm. But you see directly how many elements are matched. And then you basically can see side by side, left side the EMA one and right side the internal one, for example, for a specific packaged product, how much of those have you already matched, how much is still not matched. And also for that, we basically have now a progress monitoring that over time you see how much you're matching, how much you're improving, because ultimately you can compare only the things that you have already matched. So that's why this is so important. And you can also look into more details of the changes, and this constant changes also internally, but also on EMA side. And so the number of products you need to compare, of course, is also changing. And then for the individual elements that are matched, I can then see how much they correspond to each other and where are the differences, for example. And we can configure the scope of what you actually want to compare so that we can laser focus on the EMA critical medicines requirements before we go into more broad comparisons of the product data. And then you see, for example, there are differences in the number of packages. And in this case here, this is because in the EMA side, we have all authorized products or authorized packages, while internally there are things that are also in the SAP systems, which are actually marketed. So there is a discrepancy, but it's something that is okay. And so data stewards can then also mark that this is an acceptable difference because they know why that difference is there and they are not repeatedly bothered with this discrepancy. And of course, also for that, we measure then how much are these things corresponding to each other. So how many attributes are still different. And for that as well, we then can monitor to which extent this is fully aligned, partially aligned, or still not yet matched. And again, that helps to look to which extent you're progressing towards the fully aligned data. And you can scope that to the critical medicines first or to the full portfolio going on. Now, this is what we already have, but what's coming next is, and we have these based on also the conversations with the different pharma companies. Some RIM systems still don't support the PMS write API in time for the data enrichment that Simon mentioned. So with that, we also will support, let's say, to write into those into the API for the enrichment. We will increase further the usage of AI for not only the matching, but also for the alignment to verify which things should be corrected where. And of course, expanding on the out-of-the-box connectors, especially, of course, for Viva, because we just recently became a part of the product partner program with Viva, so that we can onboard the internal data more automatically. And with that, I would like to hand over back to you, Luis.
Thank you, Heiner. I think very insightful, and I'm pleased to see that you brought the Boehringer Ingelheim case in. I recall just a few months ago to the Pistoia Alliance, you organized a workshop there as well, presenting several use cases. And I certainly find the Boehringer Ingelheim the most telling as such. It seems to have the biggest reach, where it's not just, let's say, in development or research and regulatory, but it even can go across the company, right? Which is the objective of many life science companies, to make it work this far. I'll do a quick wrap up on this kind, and then I'll pull the panel team together. So I would request the panel team members to already come on screen if you can. Joe, Sringi, Christian, Birte, Marleen, I think EMR, Olaf. And I believe there's also Jean Gozak there, a very experienced person in this ecosystem, who we hopefully can get also in 2026 on the roster as such. But first, Veena, if you help me to walk to somewhat the same as what I spoke about earlier. The patient-centric, data-driven, AI-enabled value chain. Not going to go back to focus on ecosystem, but I'm going to repeat the data streams, Veena, the third button, if you will. because if you bring things together across the company, it's how the science data flows through the company, it's how the regulatory data follows that stream, and the business data that brings everything across. Next slide, Vina. That again goes, the reality today is not as beautiful as we like to think it is, as such, which also makes the possibilities for doing this investment with Accurates and possibly GVW working on the data, make it even more rewarding. It is not only for the regulatory part, but it will affect your entire business operations. So the objective, if you go to the next one, what we can make possible by collaborating in these levels is, can we arrive not as a single source of truth, because nobody will ever truly agree in the ecosystem, but the ontology at the background can bring it together. So can we help to bring the science data stream, the business data stream, and the regulatory data stream together? And can we arrive at a shared source of truth? I truly believe that within life science companies, but also within the ecosystem, because there's going to be more collaboration with contract research companies, contract development companies, contract manufacturing companies. The ecosystem only expands. So a shared source of truth within a company, but even more within an extended value chain network, would be fantastic if we can contribute that, help with the regulatory pressure, if you will. Let's move to the panel session. I see Joe, I see Srinidhi, Heiner, I see you. Can I ask Christian Birfe to come also on screen?
Sure, sure.
I asked my team to create one more slide as a sort of takeaway from this discussion. I think what we bring together here is the summary from CMS presentation, focusing on the challenges at the PMS side, the data quality and data governance, the continuous change that there is there, the PMS roadmap and strategy, and beyond the technical aspects, collaboration across different departments. And that is in relation to the PMS as it is now, and Accurates with coming in with the IDMP data standardization fabric with the capturing the ontologies. And the slide on the top right is basically what GVW does on a daily basis. We work with the talented people across the entire value chain. We see the change not only being data deliverables, but also digital deliverables. And through that, you adjust the processes to how the data is flowing as such, and you make use of technologies. So we make the data flow not only through the value chain, but also from any system to higher level systems in a maturity model. And in the center, I put a wedding cake question. I still believe that is the point to get all the noses in the same direction, and people start thinking about how things can be brought together. Maybe Christian, when you hear these two presentations, the pragmatic way of how to file with the EMA and what comes around the corner with Accurates and a real implementation of IDMP. What are your thoughts here in these presentations?
Thank you, Louis. Well, I must say that there is a very important aspect which is brought by Accurates. The way, to support homogeneous implementation. The difficulty we are facing actually is that many jurisdictions, I think at regulator, do implement IDMP and try to implement IDMP. I don't speak about Europe, I speak about other countries. And sometimes they are not really IDMP compliant. They think they are, but sometimes they are not. And all the means to focus on harmonized implementation are really good, and the ontology is certainly one of these solutions. At the present time, I think it's the only one, but this is the right way to go. And what we heard about, data, quality of data, etc., all that goes together. I mean, at the end of the day, you have the best data possible, but IDMP is not correctly implemented. You are losing interoperability. You have bad data, but a very good IDMP implementation. The result is similar. So really, we have to address these various aspects. I would say in parallel, but having in mind that paramount is the correct and homogeneous IDMP implementation. I think that was well covered today.
Thank you, Christian. Heiner, you want to add to that, to what Christian is observing?
Yeah, so I can resonate, of course, with what Christian is saying. I like this, that we need to have the two goals: interoperability and homogeneity or consistency of IDMP implementation, that you can put different IDMP data easily together. And the other one, of course, the content of the data must be right. And these together, only if we work on both topics, it will be successful. And one thing that might help in the future is maybe also a kind of conformance check for data, that one can make this something that you can verify, are you IDMP compliant, but not in a sense that everybody thinks they are compliant, but to which degree, what maturity, and maybe also for what parts of the ISO standards, because in many cases, if you cover 20% maybe of what ISO standardizes, we can already make a lot of progress in really getting interoperability and data quality right for the most important central objects. This famous diagram, and I think 11615 or so is this, let's say, where the most important data objects are on that. If we can standardize this and get the quality and interoperability right across organizations, I think we have solved 80% of the problems that we have right now. And can just resonate what Christian was saying.
Yeah.
Still the question, how do we get there? It's not easy.
I think one of the big things that I'm seeing once companies are implementing the Hagrid's, let's say, knowledge graph from an ontology perspective is that you start to see also where the gaps are, right? And I think and then the reality comes, like what Christian is saying, to have the step change is that having identified is already half the job, but then you still need to do the job to fix all the gaps as such.
It's a good point. Sorry
to
on this point, just to say the first thing is that, and that's we need to think how to deal with that, is that with this IDP standardization, of course, all the data gets on the surface and we see how good or bad the quality is. And that's not always what people want to see. You not always want to be reminded of all the things that need to be done. And we need to have a healthy approach towards dealing with all this, let's say, data that is still not interoperable and data that is not in the right quality and so on. That's because it's investment, but Simon, maybe you can also tell from the more from the practice also on working with the data.
The more business drivers there are, the more likelihood it may happen, though we know it's very challenging. Seema, from your daily experience as such, do you see the possibility to have leverage this technology for a more accelerated data improvement?
I feel it can be an aid, not a complete, complete 100% reliability. I feel because the main reason is the systems today, the knowledge graphs, they give you directions where you should look to correct your data quality, to miss out the gaps, how much quality your data today is. So it's more of an helping you to look in a particular place where the gaps are, where there is a requirement for you to act. So it's a need, of course, and I will not refuse that because there's huge volume. This scalability is only possible with these systems and solutions. Otherwise, doing manually, we may not be able to meet timelines also. There's a lot of complexity. So yes, automation is required along with, yes, what I have seen is when we were doing day-to-day activities to have the data quality standards, still, despite having a lot of automation, a lot of manual work was still required. In the end, you were still kind of looking at the automated results, manually trying to connect. But yes, I think with the more advanced systems and things happening, automation is required for scalability. That's I feel for sure.
Thank you, Seema. I would like to call upon Ian from GSK, being one of the representatives of industry here. Ian, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Just need to get the window open again.
Specifically from your industry background and what you do as at GSK, what are your thoughts when listening to these presentations?
For me, as a substance lead, it's difficult to really get into the details of the product information, but I can see there are lots of interactions which need to be resolved, especially trying to map the manufacturing of the product information to the regulatory side of the information, how it's being used, because we certainly want to make sure our manufactured packages match the regulatory information about those packages. Match up to the authorized products, the marketing authorization for them. So there is a lot to be done on this, and to come at it from both sides, the regulatory side and the manufacturer side, matching up the information in the products, and then to match up what EMA need as well, or other regulators need.
I think, do we have your colleague Jean Gozak today in the meeting?
He's
Jean,
in the meeting.
Jean Gozak? Maybe not. Because like what you say, Ian, from a systems perspective and making that connection, how do you work with your colleagues within GSK, right? Because ultimately,
Yeah, I think, where again, like others are, we're at the start of the journey. How do we integrate all the information together? How, we've been building our IDMP backbone, but we now need to begin to put all those parts together to make sure everything maps correctly together. We've been on this journey for about 3-4 years now, and we're reaching the maturity stage, but we're still not quite there. We've still got bits and pieces to put together to get the whole thing in place. But we're coming at it exactly as Seema and Heine mentioned. We're trying to build that pipeline to make sure we have all the information in the correct format, shareable, and we can then put it all together. Yeah, and Heine, we worked on the ontology. We've introduced the ontology as part of that backbone now to help us interact, get the interactions correct between the data, look at the data and correct the data. You both made great points about making sure the data is correct, and you then you see any issues with it and correct it as early as possible, and in the source systems, not just in what's going to the regulator.
And Ian, as you're doing the corrections at GSK, are you following the regular change control procedures?
Oh yeah, that's all done in the source system. So they'll follow complete change control, and if it needs to be updated at the regulator, regulatory systems will follow through on that process. It's not done in isolation. It's done following SOPs that are in place.
But that is exactly what creates a lot of work, right? Because a lot of stakeholders,
Oh.
data owners, decision makers, pulling it through the change control process.
Oh yes, oh yes. You know, it's something that we have to do to make sure we have good quality data. Kind of mentioned that as the heart of his thoughts, to make sure the data is good and can be reused. We want to be able to reuse it, not just use it for submission to the regulator, but reuse it internally to get better drugs in the future, to make better decisions on those substances and products.
Yeah, all right. I see a raised hand from first from Christian. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Louis. I would like to comment Ahmed, the question he has raised. It is about the use of IDMP in healthcare facilities. And it's highly interesting to me because at ISO, we are dealing with the two aspects, the regulatory aspect, which is the one we are talking the most about here, and the other one is the clinical aspects, with the idea that we should leverage IDMP in clinical settings such as a hospital. So not all IDMP is useful in a hospital. Not all IDMP is useful to a prescribing doctor also. But a number of elements of the standards are useful, and we have developed a couple of specification and standards about prescription, about medicinal product dictionaries, and a clinical decision support system, where you find, I would say, means on how to use IDMP, I say elements, so data, meeting your purpose in a hospital, and be thus interoperable. If we have in mind that one of the initial goals for IDMP was to support pharmacovigilance. So if you have a pharmaco incident in a hospital or in a doctor practice or so, it is highly useful that you are using the same identifiers, the same tools as the regulator, as the manufacturers, to communicate about this incident. So again, at ISO, we are developing also standards and specifications to support the use of IDMP in clinical care. I think this is important to say.
Possibly to add on to the question of Ahmed, right, who raised this point very well. I think part of that, Ahmed, we're not sure which country you are asking this question from, but in the ISO, basically all countries come together. So to the national standards bodies, every country participate in these discussions and in the standard creation, and it all comes together in the ISO organization. I know that Christian can explain it much better than I do, but that's sort of how the pyramid works. And we had interesting discussions this year, right, in ISO, I would say, Christian, because a conscious choice was made to also consider ClinOps within the ISO health informatics moving forward. So we will probably see more and more touch points in the near future as we are discussing these topics and where it comes together. Seema?
I just wanted to add one point when we were discussing that, we have to clean the data, align the data. I feel the bigger challenge also appears when you have missing data. You can only, if your data is priority, and which is, if it is not there, and it is not because many legacy products have that gap, it is not easy. You can't find the data. You have no clue who are the owners. There is no ownership present, and especially for the legacy products. So anything, alignment, enrichment can happen when you have the data. I would be happy even if there's an unstructured data, but I have seen cases where there is complete gap, and that is the challenge many industry do face, who are legacy product heavy.
I thank you for pointing that out, Seema, right? Because we come from a long history of control by process, and where companies have to get the market authorization by submitting hundreds of different document types and ultimately get the approval on that. And that history on how that is built is probably not in sync with the technical possibilities that we have today. So what you are saying is that sometimes you might not even find the data, or simply might not be there. Is how older the drug product is, the more likely that such things may happen, and closing the gap could be more challenging. So that's an extremely important part for the governance structure within the companies on how to deal with that, for sure. An extra challenge to the equation. From a since we were talking also about adverse effects, I believe, Olaf, you're also on the call somewhere, although I don't see you right now. But Olaf, are you there? And if I see you, please, what are your thoughts on that? First about the basic presentations, and maybe then on the adverse effects part, linking healthcare and life sciences.
I think it's a very useful discussion and interesting presentations that I've heard today. I think it goes to show that we can't do it by ourselves, and we have to collaborate to get these data in together, whether if it's about substances that we had, as you said, previous webinars in this series about the GSRS and how that and controlled vocabularies expressing the things in the same way. And that's a bit what ontology is doing here as well, comparing the data. So you could check for the gaps and see how is it described. Different regulators may have different terminologies, but you still want to have the same product out from the GSK out to the different regulators, even if they have to change a certain term for that particular regulator, for instance. So the interoperability in that sense and linking those things. So many different areas where you have to, the standard can provide the basic inputs, but then the implementation of that also needs to be discussed in an international setting globally. Like now we had the EMA, the SPORE project here, but it's Eurocentric. The world is even bigger than that, but it can be a good starting point to move and learn from as well, because it's not easy to start from the beginning. So I think that's a very great thing. And then if we go into a bit of the healthcare that we talked about also, and the question, you also have in Europe, the European Health Data Space project, and it should be interoperability, and they should, in that project, IDMP is mentioned, and it was discussed. There is an HL7 meeting in Europe today, a HL7 Europe meeting, I should say, and they discussed these kind of things, how to get IDMP in the European health data space. And I know that there are similar things. We heard that during the ISO meeting, Canadian companies talking about how the health data space, how they could have structured data, how they could work there. So it's important to try to get this, that we use the same terminology like the standards, even in those spaces, because we are already having, we have the global PHP ID. We are coming live with that in March, and that one way for the reporting to be in an IDMP format. Because if they can report with a PHP ID in the ETBR3 ISH standard, then we get actually the reporting into there. But then in the actual hospital, how that will work and the collaboration with the terminology they use, we still have to work on that, I guess, moving forward. But it's important to get there.
Maybe I can give Heiner and
maybe to follow up on this thing. What I feel is also helpful is that there's a certain global orientation given with this global PHP IDs, because what makes the whole situation also difficult is that so many different stakeholders, and to whom do you align, and to whom do you align first, and then things are changing, and so it's a constant moving target. But if we have established PHPIDs, people can first of all link to that, and then from there basically it's kind of a Rosetta Stone, because you link to that, and from there to everywhere. Yeah? And that helps, at least for one of these very important IDMP objects, pharmaceutical product, already to establish this. And of course, ISO and IDMP is more than pharmaceutical product, but we need to have these kind of global scale harmonization cornerstones. Otherwise, we are constantly have shifting targets and so on. And also in the EU, it helps if we can say PMS is the Rosetta Stone, at least for a certain scope, because that simplifies for everyone this, end-to-end mapping challenge. And that's why I really like also this the PHPID progress, and that's why we also work with Olaf and the team to build this food drug knowledge graph and try to see what's coming and how this can also then again help to map pharma data against that.
Yeah, I believe that this discussion also shows that it is a journey. Also, let's say, to an ontology maturity. Because the way I've always been looking at an ontology, it's like the highest level of master data in any type of value chain, and that all players in the ecosystem can actually have the same conversation. I think today we are still struggling to get the same conversation going in one life science company globally. That's already a massive challenge. If you then further extend that across the globe, you increase the challenge exponentially. As such. And if you then expand it also to what's happening in healthcare, etc., we have two worlds that's supposed to work together seamlessly, but they all have their own lingo still, and finding that level of ontology that makes that happen. I think we are at the beginning of a very interesting journey. Like EMA is just one of the regulatory authorities, although it sits on top of all these European authorities, but they all have their own power and strength at the same time as well. As EMA might have explained, you got the central processes, which apparently are more rich in data, but the ones that go directly to the local ones often have bigger data gaps. So there's a huge journey ahead, and this is just in one way or the other. There's already years in the work, right? Heiner, you've been on it for 4 years. IDMP has been a 15-year discussion, and we are now making potentially some real operation execution steps in the coming years, thanks to the EMA. But there's so much headway, or I would say it, roadmap ahead of us to work everybody through this. And that's why we need standards bodies organization. So with that, I think I would like to turn to Birte, representing Pistoia, and bring a lot of stakeholders together, exactly trying to predict where things are going. Birte, what do you make of today's presentations?
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Yeah, I thought this is definitely a very good discussion, and I think we heard it from Seema. Heiner had it on one of his slides as well. It's not really clear how to get started. I think Olaf also mentioned it's not easy to start from the beginning, and I think that's why these discussions are so useful. This is also why the Pistoia Alliance is such a good place where organizations, they can really come together and share those learnings. How did you navigate this preparation for this implementation? This will help others that are going to embark on these things. They can hopefully reduce some of the trial and errors, they can speed up their adoptions, and this is of course why it's so important to have these places where competitors can come in a non-competitive environment to have these discussions. So yeah, I think thank you for providing that. This is very good.
Yeah, and as you were speaking, and what comes more realization, we could map all standards bodies across the patient-centric, data-driven, AI-enabled value chain. And if you look at that from research, development, and manufacturing and quality, and then you go into healthcare, etc., and then you have the science data stream, where there are specific bodies. Then you have the business data stream. They have other bodies where they meet, and you have the regulatory bodies that meet. Where is the standards body across the standards bodies, so to speak, to accelerate even on a higher level on how things have come together. And just tossing it out there, it's not the first time that this philosophical discussion comes to the table. But the timing might be better than ever before. Heiner mentioned the Rosetta Stone, but when I saw the Rosetta Stone for the first time, in the fake one in Egypt, there's just a few languages on there, and we all know the Tower of Babylon story at least, and it's an immense number of languages that we have to bring together. So I think we are just on the cusp of solving attempting to address an alignment that has never been achieved before. So it will be very interesting on how this will evolve. I'm just going to go to the Q&A. I see one more question. Continuous updates in IDMP ontologies and spore services are constant. How do organizations manage this continuous change without compromising compliance? How do we deal with the mindset shift? Who would like to address this? I would like maybe first Seema and Heiner to think about this particular question.
Do you want to go first?
Are you seeing it in the Q&A? If you click
No,
there,
I'm not able to see. I wanted to read it, but I'm not able to see.
So if you click on more and you go to the Q&A segment, and then it pops up on your screen somehow, and there's just a few questions, and that question is posted there. In the meantime, I'm also checking to see if there's anything in the chat. Still in the chat, I also see still another question.
So you mean on the continuous updates, or?
Yeah.
The question, yeah. So continuous updates in IDMPO and spore services are constant. How do your organizations manage this continuous change without compromising compliance? How do you deal with the mindset shift? Maybe for IDMPO and the changes, this is, let's say, there are versions of IDMP ontology, and of course, when the IDMP ontology updates, then one also needs to migrate the data into the next IDMP ontology version, but that can be done in a more or less automatic way. And it all is based on the IDMP standards, whereas also, let's say, constant revisions, but of course, you update with that as you would also upgrade software. That's more on, let's say, the technology side. For the data side, with spore data, maybe Seema, if you want to answer more of all these constant updates and how you deal with that.
That was part of my challenge slide, that if you see that it's a continuous change, and there is no clarity. What is long-term clarity is lacking. So yes, but we have to be adaptable. There's no choice. This is mandatory. So with only being an agile and adaptable mindset is what I would say now. But the changes have been kind of not so frequent. Chapter 2 or more has been finalized with not many data elements being added. So we are moving towards more final, let's say final spore. but I am aware of the challenges. I face it. It's a constant pain, and you have to either find out ways of checking it frequently, either whatever works, the number of portfolio, the how large is your portfolio. You could do it monthly, quarterly. You could use systems to compare. So you could use notification system if there are any updates compared to your. So there are a lot of I'll say systems and softwares available to compare if you want. If you have a larger portfolio, if it's a smaller portfolio and you're doing it manually or semi-automatic, then probably you'll have to find a frequency where you would go and check those updates. Yes, it is a challenge which industry is facing, but you have to, I mean, it's like you be ready for the changes. There's a constant update in the quality, constant change in the standards, and constant, I'll say, interpretation changes also. So for that, we would try and depending on the portfolio, plan the strategies. Agile and adaptable is the mindset if you're looking for.
Thank you, Seema. And I maybe quickly add to that, but we've, as a data service company in life sciences, we deal with continuous changes in laboratories and manufacturing, and also in development already for a long time. I think this just elevates it to a higher level with extra challenges, but there are ways to do it for sure. Could quickly go to another question that's posted there. It's posted in the chat. Which FHIR version for PMS is used to compare the data? I don't know, is that one for you, Heiner? Which FHIR version for PMS is used to compare the data?
So we use the FHIR messages from PMS. I don't know whether it's the 4 or 5, because the EAF has a different version. But we've implemented for both version 4 and for version 5 the translations into the knowledge graph. The problem is that they are not fully compatible, of course, so we needed to implement 2 pipelines for that. No?
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever. I don't know now which is what version. No, that.
Maybe that is a question that I can also check in with Igor, such as Igor has implemented GSRS in Europe several times, good experience. Besides maybe responding also to the presentations, can you give an answer to that FHIR question, Igor?
I'm pretty sure that SMS part, the substance management part of PMS, used FHIR version 4B. It's with the extensions for substances. And for main PMS, I'm not sure. Yeah, but I think it was for B as well.
Okay. Seema, you raise your hand, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so yes, so it is for B, but the APS write capability is with version 5.
There you go. So that answer has been given. I have one more question, the last one, because we are approaching on time. It's quite a long one. It's visible in the chat. Beyond regulatory implementation, what global or regional initiatives are focused on educating clinical and pharmacovigilance stakeholders, site physicians, safety associates, regulatory operations teams, on the value and practical use of IDMP in preventing safety issues and ensuring compliance? This is also on the cusp of life sciences too, and then the clinical part. So it might be difficult to respond to that, but who wants to give it a try?
I can comment real quickly. If it seems like, yes, I think we have at UMC some of that. We are talking to countries through the program for international drug monitoring and safety. So we're educating national centers, but it's mainly been like up to now we're starting to get the IDMP in there, but it's been other types of reporting. But the more we can go, and when we go live with like the global PHP IDs, that will also be there. we have a basic course, but I took this question and copied it because I think it was a good one and that we should think about how to move forward as well.
Thank you, Olaf. And just for the audience, right, Olaf, you represent the Uppsala Monitoring Center and you participate in IDMP through the Swedish standards body.
Yes.
Just, Srinidhi, you want to add to that one?
Yeah, thanks, Louis. Just to add to what, I mean, Olaf, that was actually very interesting what you said. But I think we have even more fundamental challenge where the IDMP is mandated, even companies need to be educated. I think one of the reasons for bringing this particular webinar series was try to spread the awareness to a global, greater community. And I can see Heiner is already smiling on that one. But yes, that is as service providers and as even data players, I think we have a much bigger challenge to even make the larger community aware that you have a problem to begin with. Let us try to help you.
Yeah, it's sometimes even who is the one person who gets the access credentials for the EMA PMS API. Finding that person takes sometimes more than a month in the pharma company. Yeah.
Yeah, that shows the priority.
Even if you're talking with people in the regulatory team. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's yeah.
Well, it says something about digital maturity, and it is a challenge, right? So we are on time as such. So I see a message from Sheila thanking everybody for the webinar. Sheila also is the driver for the IDMP ontology. So it's good to see a positive response from her on this one. This was episode 5 in this series, and we see already good demand for 2026. Joe is on it. We continue in 2026. We definitely will have a topic, as far as I understand it, on the GSRS in vitro module that apparently is coming with some representative from Pistoria, Veronique Francois. We also expect Guangzhou to do a presentation talking about industry, specifically what J&J R&D is doing and how that maybe expands across their network. And Igor, who did a great session last year about experiences on implementation. I think there will be more demand for insights in pragmatic implementation of the GSRS within life science companies, regulatory authorities, or whoever wants to leverage the capabilities. In the end, it's open science and open source, and anybody can also leverage that in their entire data journey as such. I think with that, I want to thank the speakers, Seema, Heiner. Thank you so much for your hard work and making these excellent presentations and contributing to the community as such. The panel members, thank you for listening in and participating in the discussion, and everybody who has seen it now. I hope you take something away from this, and check also out episode 4, 3, 2, and 1 before you go to 6 in a few months' time. So thank you all and have an excellent day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.